It's like commitment to the fantasy as opposed to like actual commitment to doing the work of being in a relationship. Hi all, we're Kelly and Julie and we are here to find love. Today we're talking about The Ultimatum, which if you have not seen this show, it is a new dating kind of reality TV show on Netflix, and the premise of the show is basically that all of these couples have been brought into this situation because one partner has given an ultimatum in the relationship. We have to get married or we have to break up. So the contestants are kind of forced into this weird experiment where all of the couples are going to exchange partners and live with a new partner for 3 weeks to kind of see if there are any sparks. And then they go back to their old partner and they live with their original partner for 3 weeks and see if anything has changed after the experiment. And so at the end of the show, they will then have to answer the question, are they going to get married or are they going to break up? We had so many thoughts about just like the structure of the show, the kind of conceit and the idea of ultimatum. So if you want to see that, we'll put the link to that video up above and down below. We really went in. For this video, what we wanted to do is really just talk about some of these couples and specifically talk about some of the major fights that happened throughout the show. And there was a lot of really toxic behavior and toxic fights throughout this whole journey. And so we wanted to kind of call attention to specific fights and just kind of talk through some of the things that were coming up. So let's just get right into it. So starting off with Zay and Rae's big fight. So Zay and Rae came in as a couple together, and Rae had given the ultimatum to Zay, and kind of over the course of the show, it kind of becomes clear that Zay realizes that he does want to be with Rae, and Rae starts to question it. So even though Rae gave the ultimatum originally, kind of the tables sort of flip throughout this show. In particular, some of this has to do with the fact that Rae really vibes with the person that she was matched with, which was Jake. And Jake and Rae were just they were forming like a pretty good little thing while on their 3 weeks together. And then when Rae returns to Zay, it becomes very clear that they have a lot of pretty unhealthy conflict, like a very unhealthy way of approaching conflict. And that really comes to head in this scene where Zay and Rae get into this big fight and Zay just leaves to go party and he stays out all night until 8 a.m., and doesn't answer any of Rae's texts, and she is very upset about that. And when he comes home, he kind of just says he passed out at a friend's house, and it's clear that she is very hurt and just feels like trust has been ruptured.
Throughout the show, he's had a lot of issues with his family, staying in contact with his parents, and just feeling like he has been loved and received by his family members. I just don't think he's had that experience, so it makes a lot of sense why he chooses to isolate. But it just got me thinking, with these type of arguments, is childhood trauma ever a reason for reacting the way that he did? Because Rae, I think rightfully so, had a reason to be upset with him for staying out the entire night, not texting her back, and then him to default it back to this really big excuse of, well, this is what it was like for me growing up, and I just, I kind of did things alone. I think it comes to a point of how much longer do you just let someone have their past impact their present and how they cope with things before it becomes problematic, and you have to be like, no, it's not okay. I know that you've been through bad in the past, but it doesn't give you an excuse to treat me poorly in this current moment. I thought that he raised that very interesting question.
It was right after Zay and Rae had this big blow up fight about staying out all night. Zay went and had a weird semi-date, semi-friend hangout thing with Shanique right after that, and asks Shanique for her opinion, and Shanique listens to him, and then she kind of says, what you're saying, Julie, what you've been through, it does make sense why you behave the way you do in relationships, and it's not an excuse to continue behaving that way. Once you recognize that this is why I am the way that I am, then it's your responsibility to work on it, to adjust it, to change. It's not like, well, there's a reason why I do this bad thing, and so no one can get mad at me about doing this bad thing. That's not how trauma works. It's, you've been through something traumatic, you've been through something hard, maybe you've been through something that kind of shaped you in a way and gave you these, you know, there's a way that you respond to certain situations, which is maybe not the healthiest way that you should respond. Having the background experience that fueled this behavior does not mean that the behavior is okay. It doesn't mean that the behavior is healthy and acceptable. It just means that there's a reason why you behave the way that you do. And now it is still your responsibility to work on that and to stop hurting the people around you, right? And to stop doing things that are hurting yourself and doing things that are making it hard for you to form relationships. And there's a reason why Zay is the way that Zay is, but that doesn't mean that it is okay for Zay to have treated Rae the way that he did in that fight and in that night. So it's an interesting question, this question of childhood trauma, because I think all of us have some version of that, whether it's like a specific traumatic event or if it's just like, oh, like my parents were never around, or my parents kind of weren't that nice to me, and so I don't really form relationships like in a very secure way. Like, you know, whatever it might be, we all have something from our past that is shaping the way that we are today. And if the way that we are today is not healthy, we still have to work on that, right?
That comes with self-awareness because of Zay. Like, listen, like as these things are being confronted and you're realizing this could be a really big problem. This is impacting the way that I relate to people when it matters. When it matters, I will back away because my childhood trauma is that big of a block. It then comes into question of, if you're not able to adjust and change it in the moment, because healing from trauma does take time, acknowledging that maybe you should not be in a relationship, or that you have to be in a relationship with someone where you're really able to be completely transparent about where you're at, how you will react in certain situations, and asking for grace in those particular situations. And that, like, both things could be done. Both things are hard. It's hard to be single and work on the trauma. It's hard to be in a relationship and work on the trauma, but it's not an excuse, especially after a few incidents where it's that big of an incident where, you know, he's leaving for the entire night and not texting her back, which is so not okay. If that is continuing to persist, at some point it's like, do you really want to work on it, or do you just always want to be like, well, that was my past, this is why I react like that? If you love me, you just have to deal with it. Because that's not true. No partner has to deal with that. It doesn't matter how much they love you. That's just not their problem. They're not co-signing into this really individual practice that you have to take on for yourself to heal from this particular thing. They will be there to support you, but to put any type of responsibility or accountability of how they help you manage that outside of support is asking them to move into something that it's just too big of an ask for a relationship. It could be codependent, it could be enmeshment, it could be toxic. To need someone to be a certain way for you to heal from this thing that's an internal situation. So I wish that Zay kind of had the, I don't know, like that type of understanding where he reached that conclusion of, I should not be with her because this is how I'm going to react in fights. And I don't think I'm in a place to address it in a way where it can really cause positive changes in the relationship. I should probably let her go.
He clearly knew it wasn't right for him to do it, but he was just using his past as saying like, oh, well, there's a reason why. And it's like, just because there's a reason why doesn't mean that it wasn't wrong. And you should, if it happens, apologize, take responsibility, take accountability, say to Rae, like, I really shouldn't have done it. Here's why. I know why I behave this way, but I really still shouldn't have done it. Like, I know that this is not an okay way to treat you. It's not an okay way to treat my partner. It's not an okay way to be in a relationship. And I'm sorry that this is something that comes up for me and I need to work on it. And I'm going to figure out how to work on it so it doesn't happen again. Right? And like, that was clearly something that Zay was not willing to do. For him, it was like, there's a reason why I'm like this, so you need to just accept me. But to your point, it's like, you need to work on making that not happen, or you need to get out of that relationship. So she can be with someone who doesn't treat her that way. And so you can do your own work while you're single. And so it's one or the other. You need to be able to take accountability and do the work in the relationship, or you need to get out of there so she can be in a healthy relationship and you can do your work by yourself. So the other big fight I wanted to bring up about Zay and Rae actually happened right before Zay storms out to go party all night. So the fight that happens right before is basically Rae tells Zay that she doesn't think that she's ready to get engaged to him right now. She makes it clear that, you know, she still wants to try and work on their relationship, but she just doesn't know that she's ready to move forward with an engagement. And Zay is really hurt by that, which makes sense. And Zay goes like, why do you think we're not ready? And, you know, I have been trying so hard. What's wrong?
So why don't you think that we are ready for engagement? Like what? Or like, because it has to be.
Because we have not been happy.
We're not gonna act like I haven't been in this bed trying to communicate the way that you want to be communicated with. I did that. I swear to God, like I
know.
I've been trying.
It doesn't take like rocket science to like see that we've been struggling. We need to have like some good times. That's all I'm saying is that it's just been a struggle.
You said that. Fuck that, because if we're in this bed and we're having sex or whatever the fucking case is, if that shit is not fun to you, don't act like it's fun. Don't laugh and joke.
But we need a lot more of that.
Rae's just like pretty blunt about it. She's like, well, we haven't really been happy. And Zay just kind of almost sidesteps that. He kind of goes, well, I've been trying really hard and I've been trying to communicate the way you want me to. I've been trying my hardest.
I love you. I want to be with you. Like, I want to leave her with you. If you're not ready for that, let me know why you're not ready for that. Let me know the different situations why you feel that way, because I want that. I do. I want that.
Okay.
Zay is almost like not really hearing her as she's explaining it, because he keeps going like, but I love you. I really want to be with you. If you're not ready to be with me, like, I need to know why. But she's already told him why, and she keeps telling him why. She's like, because we're not happy, because I'm not happy enough. And he's like, but I really want it. I really, really want it. I want you. And he comes and he sits next to her and he just kind of keeps saying like, I want this for me. I want this for you. I do love you.
I really do. I really want this for me and for you, if you want it. Because I do love you. I do want to be with you.
Rae is just kind of, you can tell she starts shutting down and she like is like sick or something and she gets up to go get medicine. But this scene, I think, it's a really good example of like two people who are really not communicating. And in particular, you can tell that Rae is hearing him and is like understanding where he's at, but Zay is not really hearing her. Like, Zay is so caught up on how much he wants to be with her that he's not really internalizing the problems that she is naming. She's naming very clear issues, which is like, we're not having any happy moments. We're like, it's like largely negative in our relationship. We're like, just like not having good times. And he's like, okay, but why don't you want to be with me? And she's like, I just said it. And it's after a certain point, when you realize that someone is not listening to you, you just stop talking, or you stop, like, it's like you realize like that doesn't matter what I say. He's just going to keep saying what he wanted to say anyway, no matter what I say. And so Rae does shut down. And this is a problem that Rae has talked about on the show, that she shuts down a lot and like isn't very expressive about her feelings. And you see her in this moment trying to be expressive, and Zay is just not listening. And it starts to make sense, like, oh, okay, it kind of makes sense why Rae isn't very communicative in this relationship, because Zay is not able to hear her. It's kind of like anything that she says, he will return to what he was saying anyway, which is like, but I love you so much. But I love you so much. Isn't that like, if I say I love you enough, if I say I want to be with you enough, shouldn't you just say yes and accept that? Like, it's kind of like he's not listening. It makes her shut down because she's not feeling heard and she doesn't want to talk about it anymore.
One of the lowest moments of the relationship for him to realize, I think I can work on this and I want this to be a relationship that I will try my absolute best in, when the relationship was at a point where I think she wanted to break up with him. Like, him being generous in that moment was kind of like the wrong timing. So anything that he kind of did, I think she wouldn't have been able to respond positively to it because she kind of wanted a relationship defining conversation. She didn't want a relationship fighting conversation. She didn't want him to be like, I want to be with you. She wanted him to be like, these are problems we have. We need to talk about it to see if we can still be together. It's kind of like he just took all of the really specific things that they have to work on, and he tried to paper it over.
People shouldn't be with you just because you really want them to be with you. They should be with you because they want to be with you. And so
right.
That conversation just felt so like it was like misfires. It was like he wasn't even really down in the conversation with her anymore at that point. And she was hardly in the conversation too, because it seemed like she had gotten so exhausted from not being listened to, and she had gotten so exhausted from like all the fighting, and she was kind of like checking out. And he was in his own way checked out too. He was like in his own way just like so caught up on like, I have to just like make her stay and say anything I can to make her stay. It was like they were not talking to each other. Like this was not a conversation. Even though it was a conversation, it was not really a conversation, you know?
Dude, this begs the bigger question of like, are you in a relationship because you're growing together, or are you in a relationship because they're like a life raft for you? Kind of, right?
Such a good point.
Yeah, I think that with Zay, he really saw Rae as that with her family and like who she was as a person. So when she decided, I don't know if this is for me, he kind of couldn't even really process that because she was no longer just this autonomous, separate person from him. She is now this person that he's hinging family and all of these things on. And her denial is not just her denying, I don't want to be in a relationship with you. It's denying parts about himself that aren't hers to co-manage, and it's not her problem. His reactions were so disproportionate for her exercising autonomy and agency in the relationship. Like, it's totally okay if she chooses not to be with him. What makes it wrong is him deciding to still fight for it, knowing that's not what she wanted. And I have a problem with that I spoke about with Bachelor, of like Clayton fighting for Gabby and Rachel when he really wanted Susie. It's like, why can't you let someone go if they need to go, knowing that you can always go back to them later on?
It doesn't matter how much you love someone, that doesn't mean you're supposed to be together. And like, if they want to leave, you gotta just let them leave. And like, it's as simple as that. Like, you need to accept that the problems that another person has with the relationship, you don't have to agree with those problems. Maybe like, you know, Rae says like, oh, we haven't been happy. Maybe Zay doesn't agree with that. Maybe Zay thinks they have been happy. But if Rae thinks they haven't been happy, it doesn't matter what Zay thinks. If Rae is like, I have not been happy in this relationship and so I have to leave, Zay doesn't need to agree with her. He just needs to accept like, this is how Rae is seeing the relationship. This is Ray's experience of the relationship. I had a different experience, but her experience is what's going to determine whether she stays or goes. And so because she's having this particular experience of this relationship that she's not happy, that's why she needs to go. And so it's almost like accepting your separateness, right? Accepting that you're not the same person who is seeing the relationship in the same way. You don't need to agree on why you're breaking up. You just need to understand like, okay, these are the reasons that she's giving. This is how she's seeing it. And it is enough for her to want to leave.
Just let them go, because you can always have them back later on. If it's really meant to be a relationship that will stand the test of time, let time do its thing. Let time do its thing. And just if you're meant to be back together, you will be back together. And if you're not, then you had that experience with them, and that will forever positively inform your relationships moving forward if it was that meaningful to you.
Okay, so let's move on to the next couple. We want to talk about Randall and Shanique next because there is a lot going on in their relationship. So Randall and Shanique came in together. Shanique had given the ultimatum to Randall to really just that their relationship has so many issues and they fight so poorly in the relationship. And it seems mostly that Randall is just not actually sure that Shanique is the right partner for him. So throughout the whole experiment, they're just having these like pretty awful fights, these really, really, really bad fights. And largely a lot of it has to do with Shanique and her jealousy and her insecurity. Randall really hits it off with his new partner that he gets paired with, which is Madelyn. Like, Madelyn starts telling Shanique about how well her new relationship with Randall is going, and that kind of sets Shanique off. In Shanique's defense, Madelyn was being pretty rude and unnecessary with how much she was sharing, but Shanique really kind of goes off about this. So the scene that I want to talk about is shortly after Shanique finds out that Randall and Madelyn are hitting it off. She asks Randall to like go get a drink so they can have a conversation, so she can find out more about how much what Madelyn is saying is true about their connection. And we just see this conversation go south so fast.
That's something that I don't feel like she should have said.
Is that what happened?
But I expressed that to you. I told you that.
Is that what happened? Did she be getting hard when y'all be cuddling?
If it happened, it happened. But that doesn't mean it's... But see, the thing is, I'm a guy. It's natural. I'm sleeping with a girl.
So you're okay with Zay getting hard when he sits next to me?
At that time, I was drunk. It was an excuse. But you're like, why are you like looking away and not listening? Your whole thing was, you want to be a better listener just like I want to. This is the perfect time to work on that. It's just us two talking right now. Why not just listen to what I had to say?
I'm hearing you. I just think it fucking sounds crazy.
So at first, Randall's being a little squirrely about it. He's kind of like, well, at that time I was drunk and, those things did happen, but, it's not like they meant anything. But Shanique just starts to get very upset very quickly. Randall is just a little bit like, that's the nature of this experiment. He's basically like, that is why we're here. We're here to be paired with these other people. And when Shanique hears that, she just starts to shut down. She looks away. She just starts rolling her eyes at him. She just starts kind of just lashing out and attacking him, right?
You want to kiss Madelyn?
Okay, see, this
y'all want to cuddle?
All right.
You dick want to get hard? Y'all want to...
You're not... It's funny because you're not... Like,
y'all want to do all that? Cool.
All right.
Cool. That's what you want me to say, right?
And she's just kind of clearly at this point antagonizing him. She's not really trying to have a conversation, which Randall calls out.
This is the thing that we've been talking about for the longest. You're not listening to me right now. You're turning your head, and we're having an adult conversation one-on-one, but you're looking to take shots or deflect from
That's
this.
what I feel like you do all the time.
Okay, but that's what I'm working on. This is something that I'm working on, and I told you this. It's obvious.
I'm confused.
I'm gonna be real. So,
bro, you got me fucked up.
But you're walking away. But what I'm saying is, Shanique, don't walk away. It's no purpose of walking away.
Nah, you got me fucked up. You got me fucked up.
Shanique just starts to get very passive aggressive, and she eventually gets up and storms out. I think that this fight really is a really good example of just awful conflict skills, just really, really awful communication, because in particular, it's Shanique. Randall is actually trying to handle this as maturely as possible. He's just trying to be like, I understand why you're upset, but also I need to be able to have a conversation with you about this. And she just refuses. She's like, by the time she realizes that, oh, so you are doing all this stuff with this other person, oh, whatever, fuck you, fuck this, I'm out. And it's like, if you can't have a conversation with someone, then you're never going to get anywhere. You're never going to learn about why they're doing what they're doing. You're not going to be able to express how you feel, and they're not going to be able to make adjustments for you, right? And so this is a good example of just this is non-functional communication. This is absolutely non-functional, almost toxic communication, because at this point she's belittling him. She's kind of all of this body language that's basically I think everything that you're saying is shit. I don't think anything that you're saying is worth listening to. I don't think anything that you're describing is worth my time. If you're not doing exactly what I want you to do, then you're a piece of crap. I think a lot of us do this when we get really angry in a fight. We get angry and then we start resorting to name calling. We start resorting to attacks. We just get kind of mean and mean-spirited in the way that we talk to each other. And this is something that it takes a little bit of maturity, but specifically it just takes a little bit of self-awareness to be I'm hurt and I'm angry, but I'm not going to lash out at you in this conversation. I'm going to just tell you that I'm hurt and angry, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm insecure. I'm afraid of losing you. I'm jealous, whatever it is. I can just tell you why I'm feeling this way, but I'm not going to do it by lashing out, because lashing out is not going to give you what you want, which is you want to be with this person, right? You want this person to love you, you want to have a healthy relationship with this person, and lashing out at them is not going to give you the result that you're hoping for. It's not going to give you the actual thing. I mean, if I was Randall in that situation and Shanique was, my girlfriend is lashing out at me like that, I'd just be like, forget it. No one should talk to me this way. I'm out of here. It doesn't matter even if what I did was wrong. Like, it doesn't even matter at this point. You can't talk to me this way. I can't be with a person who talks to me this way.
I guess that's why her and Zay did make a good match. How much shit are you willing to put up to show how much you love me? That's kind of their thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like you not getting what you want out of a relationship is not an excuse to then be mean to your partner and lash out at them and hurt them, right? If you're not getting what you want out of the relationship, leave. Don't just start badgering them with a hammer, Like, that's not... Randall, even if you're in a relationship, he's not obligated to do everything that you want. And if you find that he's not meeting your standards, if you find that, you have a specific thing that you want from your relationship that you're not getting, get out of the relationship. Don't just stay in there and hit him with a bat every time he tells you that he doesn't want to do the thing that you want him to do. And so to me, Shanique was actually my least favorite person on this show because of the way she treated Randall. I just think that it went, and it's sad because you could tell that she's such a good person. You could tell that she has a big heart, but it's like when she is in these moments of insecurity, it's like she spirals and she almost takes it out on her partners.
So moving on to the next couple, April and Jake, they've been together for quite a while. All of them are pretty equally problematic in their own ways, but I think April represents the premise of the ultimatum the cleanest, and her dynamic with Jake. So their fight that they basically had is what happens when someone pressures you so much, what happens when someone ties their worth into getting a ring. And it's not really about where you're at or the relationship is at. It's about her kind of proving that she can be this partner, that she can have this family. Because I really do think that if she objectively looked at Jake, she would know that they weren't a good match on so many levels. But I think because she had kind of fallen into the idea of we've been together for a little bit, his mom loves me, he, buys me a car. I think that's what she said. He paid for her car insurance, all of these so they have joint assets, basically. That's kind of a step towards marriage. I can see why she's kind of seeing, okay, Jake needs to propose to me. I just didn't think that they were a good couple. I didn't think they were a good match. And outside of the marriage, I just didn't see anything that Jake was giving her that she couldn't get from any other relationship.
You could substitute Jake out for literally anybody. It wasn't ever about Jake himself. The only thing that was unique about April and Jake's relationship is just that they had been together for 2 years. And so in that sense, Jake was a better partner for her than maybe someone she had not been with for 2 years. But all she has to do is date someone else for 2 years, and then they could be as perfect of a partner for her as Jake was, considering Jake was not a perfect partner for her at all. The other thing I think about April and Jake's relationship that stuck out to me as good evidence that they probably weren't in as healthy a place as April was making it out to be was the fact that she went through his phone. She went through his phone, looked through his photos, found something that she didn't like, and got mad at Jake. What you found, I think, is a separate question, but we need to just talk about the fact that the act of looking through your partner's phone in and of itself, to me, is an indicator that your relationship is not as secure as you might be making it out to be. Because if you are secure in your relationship, you trust your partner. You don't feel the need to go through their phone. You're not oh my God, what am I going to find there? And so the fact that both Madelyn and April were I want to go through his phone and see if he's hiding something from me shows that there is not actually true trust in those relationships. The fact that both Colby and Jake did have something bad on their phones also shows that, all right, these relationships are really not in a place where they need to be. And so to me, that whole interaction, the act of looking through your partner's phone and the act of keeping this kind of secret from your partner, both of those two things, it's all right, end the damn relationship. There's not enough trust here. And if there's not trust, then you really can't move forward. I mean, I guess to be fair, you can realize one healthy way I think a couple could deal with this is April could have been Jake, I saw your phone there when you were passed out, and I had this impulse to go through your phone. I realized that I just like wanted to see what was on there. I wanted to see if you were talking to other girls. And that made me realize that I'm insecure. I don't feel secure in a relationship, that I think that you might be hiding something from me. And I feel like we need to work on building more trust. Just opening that conversation without actually looking through the phone could have done the same thing.
If you look for something on someone's phone, I 100% guarantee you will find something. Even if they're totally innocent, you will find something that you're not going to like, because your mind, all of these things are on your phone. So if someone is like violating your breach of privacy to like see what's on there, that means they're validating some intuitive feeling that they distrust their partner. And to complete the act, it's just kind of like, I think to me, if you're going to go through with it, you should just kind of expect the relationship to be over at that point. Telling them that you went through the phone, but also like for you to just take such a big step to do it, because she didn't just do that. She took screen recordings of it, airdropped it to herself so that she would have evidence. Right. Like she was looking to nail this guy to the fucking wall. She wanted to show that I saw exactly what you did and you're not going to get away with it. For her to take all of those measures just kind of shows a little bit about who she is as a partner. Reads to me as very anxious dater. Reads to me as if like there's nothing that he can really do outside of her receiving a lot of like internal work on herself for her to feel secure. There's nothing he can really do, because he gave her access to his phone, which she like agreed to like in a confessional, that she had his like, you know, information to get into it. I just don't think that he thought that she should have taken it to that level of like going through everything and sending herself the evidence afterwards so that he couldn't refute it. Like that to me just kind of feels like, April, do you want a partner or do you just want a sure thing? And what does it mean for someone to be a sure thing? What does it mean about like what you desire in your partner and their independence and autonomy? It doesn't seem like you want any of that.
Listen, in the example of like Colby and Madelyn did find something really damning, which was that Colby had a whole nother relationship, right? And like she found something, but again, that doesn't justify the behavior that Madelyn did, which was looking through Colby's phone. Why are we going behind each other's backs? And if we cannot stop, then we need to end this relationship. I don't think you have to necessarily end it like just because you have the impulse to go through someone's phone, because I think that that all just manifests from insecurity. And it's like, obviously you can't wait for yourself to be totally secure before you enter into a relationship. I think that that's not realistic, but I do think that if you realize that you are having these impulses that stem from your insecurity and from the lack of trust in the relationship, you need to address that. And like, you getting caught up on whether or not you found something on the phone, it's like kind of missing the point, right? It's missing the point that there is a lack of trust here, that there's a lack of security on the part of one or both partners. And that's the thing that I think needs to get addressed.
This beautifully segues us into the Colby Madelyn of it all, because I think that what you're speaking about, that inauthenticity of like, can I tell my partner that I'm feeling insecure? Their entire relationship feels like a farce to me. Like it kind of feels so image oriented. I don't think he sees Madelyn as much as he sees who he wants her to be. And that leads into like a lot of, I can see why, like a lot of secrecy almost, and why he was having these little illicit, you know, interactions with people, and she had to go through his phone to find things, because I don't think Colby really has the capacity to totally be honest with her. And I think she can sense that. Like there's something fake about the way that he performs in a relationship. It kind of reminds me of how I dated when I was in high school. Like you think you have to be a certain way. So then you kind of just kind of, you play into that image a little bit. You see your partner, but not really. You see them for what they can give you, who they are to you.
Yeah. So well said. So quick background on Colby and Madelyn. For those who don't know, these two were brought in, or they came into the show because Colby had given the ultimatum to Madelyn. So he really wanted to get married to her. She just wasn't sure. And she kind of came in on the show. Basically, in all of her confessionals, she was just like, she was just like, Colby kind of sucks. He's really like annoying. I don't really enjoy being around him. He's just like pain in the ass. And like, she just like kind of, it was so, her friends didn't like him. It was super weird. She was just like, she just didn't like the guy. So I don't really know why she was in the relationship. I think that you are picking up on a really, just like, what, maybe it's like the core issue here, right? Which was that Colby was like really not seeing Madelyn fully, right? Colby was kind of like doing this thing where he kind of put her on this pedestal, and like he had identified her as the woman that, you know, he wanted to be with. And it didn't really have a lot to do with her or the qualities that she had, as much as it was that he had just made the decision that it was her. He had just made the decision that like, I decided that I want to chase her. And so she even at some point names that to him. She sits him down. This is like later in the show when they've already gotten back together and they've been together for 2 weeks or something. And she's like, sometimes I feel like you don't even really know me. Like, you say that our relationship is so great and you say that, you know, you really, really love me, but I don't always feel like you're listening to me or like you know anything real about me or that you understand how I feel.
I feel like you don't listen to me. I feel like you don't know me. I feel like you don't love me for me.
And so she seems to even be aware of this too, that there is like a barrier between the two of them where it's kind of like he says that he loves her without even really putting in the effort to know her or know what she feels and what she needs. And love is not just this like thing that like, as long as I'm like, I feel it, it's real. It's like love is knowing what this person wants, knowing who they are, and like taking the actions to deliver on that, right? Taking the actions to, you know, make them happy and to be a good partner to them. Not just what you think being a good partner is, but what they think being a good partner is, what they need. But at no point was he actually trying to listen to her needs, because anytime that she brought up an issue, he would kind of like shut out. And like, that's the thing. It's like, if you're not seeing someone and actually trying to like understand them, actually trying to understand their feelings, actually trying to make sure that they are okay, it's like, is that real love? Like, if you saying the words I love you and just being like, I'll stick with you no matter what, but I'm not going to do anything to make sure that you're happy, is that love? Or is it just like stubbornness? Is it just like you just got caught on this idea of like, I need to be with Madelyn without actually doing anything to make her happy, you know?
Totally. I think the nefarious thing about Colby is like, I don't know if he really understands feelings or emotions that deeply. So that scares me. If he doesn't understand that, he is running around, throwing around these words that he's not truly connected to. He's saying, I love you. I want these things with you. But it's like, do you really see her for who she is? Because I don't think that she is in the same place as you. So why are you so insistent on perpetuating this fantasy that you two have together? What is it about why you're so disconnected to who she is as a person that you're kind of like, I think Madelyn knows what, you know, how great I am, XYZ. It's like, that doesn't really matter. He kind of has the same, I can see why him and April paired up. They have a similar thing of like falling for the idea that marriage is going to validate something about their personhood, when it literally says nothing. It says nothing about you as a person. That just means you're married and you're in a family. What does it really mean when you choose to be with someone and then you make that decision together out of a result of organic growth versus I'm doing this because I'm checking something off my list?
Yeah, totally. I think with April, there's definitely this like checkbox thing. And with Colby, it's like, I don't even know if it's like about marriage specifically as much as it is about like wanting to like get the girl. When he was courting Lauren in the first week where they're all kind of dating each other and figuring out who they want to pair off with, Colby starts hitting it off with this girl, Lauren, who eventually gets proposed to by Nate, which we're not even going to touch on this video, but she eventually does get a proposal from the guy that she came with. Colby and Lauren initially are kind of hitting it off, and she kind of has this thing where she's like, doesn't want to have kids, and he's like, oh, I can convince her. Like, I'm feeling something here. And you could see it just like, he just starts like spewing random words. He just starts being like, Lauren, like, I'm gonna choose you every day. Like, Lauren, like, you're the most beautiful. I'm gonna make sure you know every day that you're the most beautiful woman that I have ever seen, because it's true. And it's like, huh? Like, why are you suddenly saying all of these words? And like, you can tell that these are all words that he probably has said to Madelyn too. Like, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And it's like, you're just saying the things that you have heard. You're like regurgitating romantic phrases. And so I think Colby has this problem where this is like a classic thing. Actually, I see it all the time, especially on these dating reality TV shows. This is such a thing on The Bachelor, but it's also a thing in real life. I think people just like have this idea of, this is what romance looks like. I see happy couples on my Instagram feed always say this in their captions, so I should be saying this, right? And then they start saying things that aren't, how they actually feel, or they don't even really understand those words. And so anyways, I think that I think Colby really, to your point, like falls into this trap of like performing a little bit. He's like performing what he thinks relationships are supposed to be like, or what a good partner is supposed to be like, as opposed to actually listening, to what his partner Madelyn is needing from him.
So that was us discussing all of the big fights in the Ultimatum. I think that if this is the direction of reality dating shows, it's already not that great, let's be honest, but holy, it's really going downhill. Like, even more so, this is like kind of the next wave of it. Just having a 3-week trial marriage with someone else, it doesn't really do anything. It's just a fun little experiment. How are you going to have those hard conversations and really get to the heart of it with someone, instead of doing what they did, which is put a band-aid on it, have them hang out with someone else attractive and hot for 3 weeks,
right? And
then hope that at the end of that experience would shift them enough to have the conversation with their partner. I just think that it doesn't, like, unless you're doing it with a couples therapist or some type of facilitator for like a third party, it's never as good as talking to your partner about it. Like,
right.
You can talk to your friends, you can talk to your mom, you can talk to anyone, your coworkers, about what's happening with your partner, but your partner is the only one that can really change that. I don't think that the experiment, it caused any significant waves in their lives or for the people watching it.
We want to know, like, what was the couple that you thought was the strongest on the show? And what was the couple that you thought was the most, like, wow, they should not be together? Let us know in the comments down below. Make sure you subscribe to our channel if you want to hear us talk more about reality TV.
We have all of the tea, all of the analysis for you guys. So let us know, and we'll be back soon.